The rain hit my windshield like tiny fists, and I sat there in the driver's seat of my old Honda, watching my breath fog up the glass. My phone buzzed. It was my brother, Ethan. "Where are you sleeping tonight, Grace? In your car again?" His laugh crackled through the speaker, sharp and cruel. "Mom says you're an embarrassment. Maybe if you stopped chasing that stupid business dream, you'd have a real bed." I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. "I'm fine, Ethan. You're not fine. You're pathetic." I heard my mother's voice in the background, agreeing with him, laughing along. I didn't cry, not that night. I just closed my eyes and whispered to myself, "One day, you'll all remember this moment. And you won't be laughing." Before I tell you what happened next, and how 6 months later my entire family would be standing outside my office building, terrified of what I'd become, let me take you back to where this all started. If you're watching this, drop a comment and tell me what city you're tuning in from tonight. I read every single one, and honestly, hearing from you all over the world is what keeps me writing these stories down. But this story isn't just about a woman sleeping in her car. It's about a secret my family kept from me for 11 years, a secret that once uncovered, would burn their entire world to the ground. And trust me, the twist at the end of the story is something you will never see coming. My name is Grace Whitfield. I'm 31 years old, and back then I was working 2 jobs just to keep my dream alive. By day, I was a barista at a coffee shop in downtown Portland. By night, I designed logos and websites for small businesses, teaching myself code from library computers because I couldn't afford my own laptop. My dream was simple. I wanted to build my own branding agency. Not because I wanted fame or money, but because I wanted to prove that someone like me, someone who grew up being told she'd never amount to anything, could build something real with her own 2 hands. I sacrificed everything for that dream. I skipped meals so I could pay for online courses. I turned down invitations from friends because I was working. I lived in that car for 4 months because my apartment lease ended, and every landlord in the city wanted a cosigner I didn't have, and my family refused to help. Growing up, I was never the favorite. My brother Ethan was the golden child, the one who got the new clothes, the college fund, the birthday parties with rented bounce houses. I got hand-me-downs in silence. My parents, Richard and Linda Whitfield, made sure I understood my place in that house from the time I could walk, but I never let it break me. Every rejection built something inside me. Every insult became fuel. By the time I was 28, I had 3 loyal clients. By 29, I had built a small portfolio that impressed a private investor named Marcus Chen, who believed in my vision enough to fund my first real office space. The week I signed that lease, the week my life was finally turning around, was the exact week my family found out. And that's when everything changed. I remember calling my mother, my voice shaking with excitement. "Mom, I did it. I got an investor. I'm opening my own office next month." There was a long pause. Then she said, "Don't get ahead of yourself, Grace. You always do this. You'll fail like you always do." I hung up the phone that night and sat in my car in the parking lot of my old apartment complex, staring at the investment contract in my lap, wondering why the people who were supposed to love me most were always the ones trying to convince me I couldn't win. 2 weeks after I signed the lease for my new office, my father called me. His voice was different this time. Not cruel, careful. "Grace, we need to talk about something. It's about your grandmother's inheritance." My grandmother, Eleanor, had passed away 3 years earlier. She had always been the one person in my family who believed in me. She used to slip me $20 bills and whisper, "Don't let them dim your light, sweetheart." "What about it?" I asked. "Your grandmother left you something, a trust. It matures this year. Your mother and I have been managing it since she passed." My stomach dropped. Managing it. "Nobody told me there was a trust." "We were going to tell you when you were ready," he said, and I could hear the lie folding itself into his words like paper. That's when Ethan showed up at my new office unannounced, wearing his expensive jacket, smirking at the Whitfield Creative sign I had just installed above the door. "Cute little shop," he said, running his finger along the reception desk. "Too bad it won't last. You know, Mom and Dad already talked to a lawyer, right? About the trust. They're saying you're financially unstable, unfit to receive it. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. That trust is mine. Grandma left it to me. Grandma's dead, Ethan said flatly. And dead people don't get a say anymore. I found out the truth over the following weeks, piece by piece, like pulling a thread and watching an entire sweater unravel. My parents had been quietly petitioning the estate attorney to have me declared financially incapable of managing the trust, which would have handed control of nearly $200,000 directly to them, under the excuse of protecting me. This wasn't new behavior. It was the same pattern I had watched my entire childhood. When I was 16, my parents took the babysitting money I had saved for 2 years and used it to pay Ethan's speeding ticket, telling me family helps family. Except that help only ever flowed one direction. When I got my first job at 19, my mother borrowed my paycheck for groceries and never paid it back. When I turned 25, my father cautioned a car loan for Ethan and used my social security number without asking, damaging my credit for years because he never told me he'd done it. Every time I confronted them, I was the problem. I was ungrateful. I was dramatic. I was selfish for wanting what was rightfully mine. Now they wanted the one thing my grandmother had left specifically for me, the woman who had seen something in me nobody else bothered to see. The escalation began slowly, then all at once. My mother started calling my clients, telling them I was unstable and couldn't be trusted with their projects. One client, a boutique owner named Priya, called me in tears asking why my own mother had warned her against working with me. Then came the legal letter. My parents' attorney sent a formal notice claiming I had a history of financial recklessness and requesting an emergency hearing to appoint them as trustees. Then Ethan started showing up at my apartment building, banging on the door at midnight, demanding I sign over power of attorney before things got messy. Then, the worst moment. I arrived at my office one morning to find the locks changed and a notice taped to the glass door claiming the building had been repossessed due to fraudulent lease signing. My father's name was listed as the emergency contact on the notice, a name I never gave anyone. I stood outside my own office, the one I had bled for, and realized my family wasn't just trying to take my inheritance. They were trying to destroy everything I had built with my bare hands, just to prove that I would always need them, that I could never win without their permission. That was the moment I stopped being afraid. That was the moment I started building something they never saw coming. I didn't scream. I didn't cry outside that locked office door. I called Marcus Chen, my investor, and calmly asked him for the name of the best attorney he knew. Her name was Dana Ferreira, a sharp, no-nonsense estate and business litigation attorney who listened to my entire story without interrupting once. When I finished, she looked at me and said, "Grace, they made one mistake. They underestimated you." Over the next month, while my family believed I was falling apart, I was building my case. I pulled bank statements, showing every dollar my parents had taken from me over the years, without permission. I found the forged lease termination notice and had it analyzed by a document examiner who confirmed my father's signature had been used without authorization. I gathered text messages from Ethan threatening my clients. I even found security footage from my office building showing my father entering with a locksmith 3 days before the repossession notice appeared. Dana filed for an emergency injunction to reverse the trust petition and reinstate my lease. She also filed a formal complaint of financial elder fraud because in trying to seize my inheritance, my parents had forged documents using my dead grandmother's estate paperwork. A crime far bigger than they realized. The hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning. I told no one except Dana and Marcus. I wanted my family to walk in believing they had already won. They arrived at the courthouse smiling, my mother in her Sunday best, my father clutching a folder of falsified financial statements. Ethan smirking at me from across the hallway like this was already over. "You should have just signed the papers, Grace," Ethan whispered as we waited to be called in. Now you're going to lose everything in front of everyone. I said nothing. I simply looked at him and smiled, the same calm smile I gave myself in that car the night it all began. Inside the courtroom, my parents' attorney spoke first, painting me as reckless and unstable, insisting the trust needed adult supervision. My mother nodded along, dabbing fake tears with a tissue. For a moment, I saw doubt flicker across the judge's face, and my heart sank. It felt like they were winning. Then Dana stood up. She presented the forged lease termination notice, alongside the security footage of my father entering with a locksmith. She presented the bank records, showing over $40,000 taken from my accounts over a decade without consent. She presented the falsified estate documents used to alter the trust filing, complete with expert testimony confirming the forgery. The courtroom went silent. My mother's tissue stopped moving. My father's face went pale. Ethan's smirk disappeared entirely. The judge looked directly at my parents and said, "This is not a case of protecting a family member. This is financial exploitation and fraud, and I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office." Just like that, the trust was released fully to me. The lease was reinstated with damages awarded for wrongful lockout. And my family, the same people who laughed at me sleeping in my car, were now facing formal fraud investigation. They didn't come to apologize. They came to my office building 6 months later, waiting outside on the sidewalk, because Ethan had lost his job after the scandal became public. And my parents needed somewhere to redirect their fear. They stood outside my glass doors, the Whitfield Creative sign gleaming above them, and for the first time in my life, I watched them wait for me instead of the other way around. I didn't let them in. 1 year later, my agency had grown to 12 employees. I had rebuilt every client relationship my mother tried to destroy. Marcus became not just my investor, but one of my closest friends. My grandmother's trust became the foundation for a small scholarship I started for young women starting businesses with nothing but a dream and a car to sleep in if it came to that. My family reached out one final time through a mutual cousin, asking if there was any chance of forgiveness. I sent back one sentence. "I forgive you, but forgiveness doesn't mean I owe you a seat at my table. So here's a question for you before you go. If your own family tried to destroy the one thing you built with nothing but sacrifice and hope, would you have let them back in? Or would you have chosen peace over blood?" Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one of them. And if this story moved you even a little, hit that like button, subscribe our channel Heartstone Lane if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next story because trust me, this one is just the beginning of what's coming.